Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a project update video for this 1/6 scale vintage early production Armortek Tiger 1. Since the last video update, a lot of progress has been made to the tank's lower hull, and we'll be going over these additions and modifications in this video. If we can recall from the previous video, the builder, when he first assembled the tank, went ahead and added a coat of primer as well as a white coloring to the interior portion of the tank. For whatever reason, this paint began to chip on the builder. Also in the previous video, I go ahead and describe that I went ahead and tried to remove the chip paint via some hand tools as well as some power tools. In that video, you'll see that I wasn't able to fully remove all of the paint necessary in order to make for a nice, smooth finish. Right after the filming of that video, I decided it was probably better to have the tank bead blasted and media blasted in order to get all of the residual paint off, so I'm left with a pure, empty base metal hull. The tank was taken to a local bead blaster who did a phenomenal job in removing the paint. If I unhinge the camera, you will see that the interior is completely void of the original paint that was added by the customer. All that remains now, prior to adding the primer, is to get some of the media blown out of the tank and vacuumed out. Once the foreign objects are removed, the interior will head into primer. With the bead blasting and priming out of the way, it's now time to add the lower hull fittings. This would include the final drives, the welds, as well as the idler mount bosses. Now, to the casual observer, these just might look like standard off-the-shelf plumbing fittings. In actuality, these are custom-made brass CNC'd bosses that are specifically designed for the Tiger 1. These were originally supplied with the first generation of Armortek Tiger 1 kits. The pieces, like I said, are solid brass, they are CNC'd, they're very nicely machined, and the way they install to the vehicle is with, as you notice, there's a threaded portion on the end and a large corresponding nut. The components simply just thread together, and then once this fastener is tightened all the way, it will be nice and tight and firm on the hull and will not come loose on you. Now, as an interesting comparison, I have here a idler mount boss from their current generation of Tiger 1s. If we notice, the material has changed from brass to aluminum. It's CNC'd, similar quality as the brass one. The design was changed a little bit in that the actual idler mount itself has a wider shaft compared to the older one, and instead of the threads, the component is simply bolted onto the vehicle via two fasteners. Both of the components are similar in dimension, with the exception, of course, the hole being smaller in diameter on the brass one. It is also at this time of the build where I can install the front final drive components. Now, these components here would include the two armored collars, as well as the two rigidity bulkheads. And here goes the armored collar and reinforcement plate, now fixed and permanently mounted to the vehicle. The setup that you see here is a mirror image on the opposite side and features the same exact mods and features that were put into this piece here. As quick notice, you will see that the holes for the mounting fasteners have been bored out and have been enlarged. The kit original holes were much smaller and were designed to have the fastener heads simply poke out through the metal plate. However, on the real Tiger 1, the real fasteners were actually sunk into the plate somewhat so that their heads were not exposed. This detailing was added to the Armortek piece by simply with a larger drill bit on a drill press, drilling partway through the plate in order to get the correct thickness. As for mounting the plate to the vehicle itself, a third hole was drilled in this location right over here. This hole here is concealing a fastener which bolted it to the vehicle. The fastener itself was thoroughly deleted and blended smooth with the tank's bodywork for the flush appearance that you see here. A similar setup was done with the armored collar for that of mounting it to the tank. Just like in the previous scene, the component's designed to be mounted to the tank via 2 hex bolt fasteners, which protrude from these 2 locations here. Just like with the armor collar, the plate itself, the holes were drilled to have countersink fasteners, and once the countersink fasteners were added, they too were blended in seamlessly with the tank's bodywork. By doing this, greatly helps the look of the model and makes it for a little bit more of a realistic appearance. To complete the illusion, I went ahead and added all of the weld beads in the appropriate locations. Moving our way to the tank's rear idler mount. These are the same brass rear idler mounts that were showcased earlier on in the video. They were installed out of box with the use of thread lock, as well as some sculpted epoxy weld beads for both a little bit of structure and for better detailing. As for the track aligner, this component here was added by myself. This was not included with the Armortek kit original piece. The component that you see here is an actual Armortek component, and that Armortek, since the release of these 2003 kits, now come with the track aligner. The purpose of this piece of equipment is that on the real Tiger 1, when the idler would rotate, if any of the track pins were to get loose, in order to prevent them from falling out of the track, which can cause a derailment, the pin would strike this steel plate here, which would in turn force it back into the track, thus keeping the track on the vehicle. This is a signature piece found on German Tiger 1s, and like I mentioned before, on the early first generation kits from Armortek, they were not included. However, what's interesting enough is that the mounting holes for this component are present on the Armortek kit. As for this component here, I acquired it again from Armortek brand new, and it was a simple drop-in installation with absolutely no extra drilling required for the addition of this component. Since the idler mount is the same specs as the new current versions, this track aligner block here will not have any interruptions with the track. Moving our way down from the idler cluster takes us to some of the welds. Just like what was mentioned on the front, all of the lower hull welds have been added, including the ones on the side, along the sponson, and along the rigidity brace. In addition to the rigidity brace welds, you can also see that I went ahead and added the little riveting detailing that is found on the real German Tiger 1. The real Tiger 1 is an all-welded vehicle. However, for the use of mounting on the sponson to the side hull, most German tanks feature a brace setup like this, in which it is riveted to the hull and then welded for the rest. These features are now added to this model here. Now, like we recall, the brace itself was a piece of steel that was laser cut. The holes were present. To add the rivets, I simply would have drilled out each of the holes and simply mounted in the rivets. By doing this, also helps the look of the model. While we are here, you can also see the addition of the East Coast Armory shock absorber insert. The Tiger 1 features 4 of these shock absorbers, 2 on each side. The purpose of this is because of the Tiger 1 sheer weight, the torsion bars alone were not going to be suitable enough to hold the weight of the real vehicle. In addition to the torsion bars, the real Tiger 1s, as well as all the other German tanks, featured large shock absorbers on the inside of the vehicle. These shock absorbers are mounted via a large plug, which is then welded to the exterior portion of the tank. Another addition that was added to the lower hull was the mounting of these bump stops. The Tiger 1 featured 4 of these very distinctive bump stops which are mounted on the hull. The purpose of these bump stops is to prevent the swing arm from over carrying and can possibly causing damage. The bump stop itself is not included with the kit, but is an aftermarket component from Steve Winston. Just like with my last Tiger 1 build that I've done from Armortek, these components here are highly recommended. They are made out of a brass alloy. As you can see, they have all of their cast numbering details featured, as well as their fastener details. The rubber block itself is an actual hard rubber block and will actually perform the duties in case the need arises. In addition to the bump stops, the set also comes with a set of very nicely done castle nuts. These are all casted in the same metal and are pre-threaded and are very nicely detailed, as you can see once installed. Also, a quick tip, as you can notice, the rubber portion of the bump stop is protected with masking tape. This is so that once the vehicle is fully painted, I can peel the tape off and the rubber will be exposed as it is on the real vehicle. With these additions now added to the model, the lower hull is now ready for it go into its painting procedure. As you can see, currently it is sitting in its coat of gray primer. The protective coat makes the actual base coat stick better, and will, since a lot of the pieces are made out of steel, will give them better protection against things like rust and other oxidation and corrosion that can possibly happen over time. Along with the exterior portion, the interior portion was primed as well. Like we recall, the inside was fully bead blasted, which left for a nice surface in order to add on the new coat of primer. With the new coat of primer added, the interior now is ready for its next step, which in this case will be the addition of the suspension and torsion bar components. More information on that is to come in another update video. And that concludes this project update video for this 1/6 scale Armortek early production German Tiger 1. If you like this video, stop by and like us on Facebook, and don't forget to check out eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thank you.